Cabinet received a memorandum on the Constitutional Amendment Bill of 2026. The memorandum proposes a series of legal reforms to strengthen constitutional governance, clarify institutional roles, promote social, economic, and political stability, and also to enhance the efficiency of the state architecture. The bill forms part of Zimbabwe's legal evolution and seeks to adhere to the spirit of the Constitution, refine and modernize certain provisions in response to government's experience, developmental imperatives, and comparative constitutional practice. The primary objectives of the bill are to enhance political stability and policy continuity, to allow national development programs to be implemented to completion, clarify institutional mandates, and eliminate functional overlaps that undermine efficiency and accountability, to strengthen democratic structures through rationalization of electoral and oversight functions, to align Zimbabwe's constitutional framework with contemporary African constitutional models that have demonstrated resilience, legitimacy, and effectiveness, and to promote long-term national stability, inclusivity, and public confidence in constitutional institutions. In detail, the bill provides as follows. Clause 1 provides for the title of the bill. Clause 2 repeals Section 92 of the Constitution and substitutes it with a parliamentary process for electing the president. It specifies that a candidate must secure a majority of votes, and if no one achieves an absolute majority, a runoff election will be held. The process is overseen by the Chief Justice or a designated judge to ensure it is conducted properly. These measures strengthen constitutional accountability by promoting fairness, openness, and judicial oversight in the election. The procedure for the election shall be in accordance with the standing rules and orders of Parliament. Clause 3, 7, and 8 amend Section 95, 143, and 158 of the Constitution in terms of the current 5-year term of office for the President and Parliament with a 7-year term. The objective of this reform is to reduce election-related disruptions, enhance policy continuity, allow sufficient time for the implementation of long-term national projects, and promote political and economic stability. Clause 5 amends Section 114, subsection 3 of the Constitution by substituting High Court with Supreme Court, thereby requiring that a person appointed as Attorney General possesses the qualifications necessary for appointment as a judge of the Supreme Court. The justification for this amendment is that in accordance with the Attorney General's Office Act, Chapter 7.19, Deputy Attorney Generals are now placed at a level equivalent to that of High Court judges, making it institutionally coherent and legally appropriate for the Attorney General to be subject to the higher qualification threshold applicable to the Supreme Court. Clause 6 amends Section 120 of the Constitution to allow the President to appoint 10 senators increasing the total number of senators from 80 to 90. The amendment is intended to broaden technical expertise within Parliament, enhance oversight, expand the pool of potential ministers, and to promote national cohesion. In addition, Clause 9, 10, and 11 establish the Zimbabwe Electoral Delimitation Commission and transfer the function of the delimitation of electoral boundaries from the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission to the new commission. The reform addresses concerns related to institutional overlap and perceived conflicts arising from Zek's dual role and promotes good governance, institutional integrity, and functional specialization. Clause 12 and 16 repeal sections 239 subsection C to E that relate to the registration of voters, compilation of voters' roll and registers, and ensure proper custody and maintenance of the voters' roll is transferred to the Registrar General. This amendment is intended to improve efficiency as the Registrar General is the custodian of vital registration information. Furthermore, Clause 14 repeals Section 180 subsection 4 and 4A and 5 by removing the interview process. Clause 15 amends Section 212 of the Constitution by deleting the words "to uphold this Constitution" and replacing them with "in accordance with the Constitution." The amendment is intended to reinforce the provisions of Sections 213 and 214 of the Constitution. This is the first issue that was presented. We now move to the second item that was discussed in Cabinet. Cabinet received and noted an update on the 2025-2026 summer crops production plan. Cabinet advises that the current strategic grain stock at the Grain Marketing Board stands at 187,245 metric tons, with 113,000 metric tons being wheat, whilst the balance comprises maize and traditional grains. Notably, ADA, as the food security agent for the nation, has contributed 84.8% of the marketed grain. In terms of funding, the summer cropping season currently stands at ZiG 73 million and United States dollars 313 million. The Grain Marketing Board has already paid farmers for grain deliveries valued at 22 million United States dollars, and weekly payments will also be expedited in order to clear outstanding payments. Cabinet highlights that the first round of crop, livestock and fisheries assessment led by the Zimbabwe National Statistical Agency is currently underway, and conclusive area indications for various crops are expected in due course. However, preliminary assessments indicate that the crop condition is good across all provinces. The Meteorological Services Department has predicted normal to above normal rainfall till March. A total of 1.9 million hectares across the 10 provinces was set aside for maize during the 2025-2026 season, compared to 1.4 million hectares during the 2024-2025 season, representing a 30% increase. To date, ADA has planted 101,000 hectares, being 34,752 hectares under maize, 66,478 hectares under sorghum. concerning the adoption of climate-proof, sustainable, intensive conservation agriculture, provinces registered a combined 15,967,000 plots under the 2026-2025 season, compared to the 10,817,000 plots achieved last year, indicating a 48% increase. A total of 164,536 hectares have been planted under tobacco, being a 15% increase in area compared to the 143,000 hectares planted at the same time last year. The crops are in good condition. Meanwhile, tobacco exports increased to 42,139 million kilograms compared to 19 million kilograms exported at the same time in 2025. Cabinet also received an update report on preparations for the National Youth Day celebrations. The 2026 National Youth Day celebrations will be held at Igava Training Center in Marondera, Mashonaland East Province on the 21st of February 2026 under the theme Youth Agenda for Transformation. This event continues the rotation of hosting of national events within provinces, promoting regional development and youth empowerment. A new state-of-art vocational and youth center will be established at Igava and will be named in honor of His Excellency the President, Dr. Edin Nangagwa, to support skills training and entrepreneurial growth for young people. The youth center will be equipped with modern state-of-art facilities, including smart workshops, metal fabrication and digital learning laboratories, innovation and incubation hubs, residential accommodation, health facilities, among others. It will provide a diverse curriculum in terms of the training programs, which will be supported through public-private partnerships to enhance market relevance and ensure sustainability. A total of 30,000 youth from all the provinces will be mobilized to participate in terms of the celebrations at Igava. The outcomes from the 2026 National Youth Day celebration will also include enhancing employment opportunities, empowering young people, developing skills for youth who are not in education and in employment or training, supporting youth-owned enterprises, and establishing a model for youth service and vocational training centers. Cabinet received a noted progress update on preparations for the 46th Independence Day anniversary celebrations and the 2026 Children's Party. Cabinet would like to advise that the 46th Independence celebrations and the 2026 Children's Party will be held at Mapisa Growth Point in Matobo District in Matabele South Province under the theme Zimbabwe 46 Unity and Development towards Vision 2030. The Children's Party will be held at Maheche Primary School, whilst the Independence Gala will be held at Minda Primary School in Matobo District. The decision to hold the 2026 Independence Day anniversary celebrations at Mapisa Growth Point resonates with the rotational principle of leaving no one and no place behind. The event will not only honor the legacy of the late Vice President, Dr. Joshua Bobu, who hailed from Matobo District in Matabele South Province, but will also bring about a surge in infrastructural projects, including rehabilitation of roads, schools, and health facilities. The event will therefore serve as a catalyst for long-term development, social inclusion, and national unity. The preparations for the upcoming events commence in earnest in October 2025 with government teams mobilized to spearhead the following developmental initiatives, which include the rehabilitation and surfacing of 3 major access roads at Mapisa Growth Point and the gravelling of 3 more to provide access to the Independence Celebrations venue. Other legacy projects, which will include the rehabilitation of the Bulawayo Airport Road, the Bulawayo to Kezi, and the Bulawayo to Mapisa, Gwanda to Mapisa, Mapisa to Mpoex, Mapisa to Manama, and St. Joseph to Sanyat Sen, Filabusi to Avoka, Plumtree to Cholocho, and Plumtree to Matiengwe and Ndolwane roads. The government has already worked out the program and logistical arrangements for the Children's Party and the main celebrations, where a total of 3,050 learners are expected to participate. Other significant milestones include the following: the identification of Liberation War sites at Zezani Mission, Ratanyana Beto sites, Kim's Lika's grave, and the district hero center, the establishment of the Joshua Nkomo Vocational Training Center in honor of the late Vice President Dr. Joshua Nkomo, the installation of ICT laboratories in terms of schools and other 50 schools in the districts in terms of connectivity, the establishment of a cultural center and drug and substance abuse rehabilitation legacy facility. The selection of entertainment groups will also include Ufa Simba and Ndolwane Super Sounds, Mavusani and Chimurenga vocalists, and many others. The selection of a Renders Queens Football Club to play against Mpopoma Sports Academy for the Children's Party, while the Premier League will feature Scotland, which will play Highlanders Football Club during the main independence celebrations. The selection of 18 torch bearers for the lighting of the independence flag. Cabinet also considered and approved the 2026 General Amnesty as proposed by the Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs. Cabinet advises that His Excellency the President, Dr. Edin Nangagwa, who in terms of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, exercise his power of mercy to grant pardon to any person concerned in or convicted of an offense against the law. The presidential clemency aligns with the mandate of the Zimbabwe Prisons and Correctional Service on the rehabilitation and reintegration of offenders back into society. Inmates who have demonstrated good behavior and readiness to be reintegrated into the society will benefit through the 2026 General Amnesty before the parole system comes into effect. The presidential clemency will decongest the prison population for the healthy and secure environment for the remaining prisoners. The following categories of prisoners will benefit under the 2026 General Amnesty: all convicted female prisoners, juveniles, prisoners serving an effective period of 48 months and below, inmates certified terminally ill, for prisoners at open prison, for all prisoners aged 60, prisoners sentenced to life imprisonment provided they've served 20 years, prisoners with disabilities, and an additional 1/4 remission of the effective term of imprisonment to those prisoners who were sentenced to more than 48 months. The General Amnesty will exclude any prisoner who was previously released on amnesty, any person imposed sentence by a court-martial, any person with a record of escaping from lawful custody, and any inmate convicted of any specified offense. The specified offenses include murder, treason, rape or sexual offense, carjacking, robbery, armed robbery, public violence, human trafficking, unlawful possession of fire, contravention of Electricity Act and the Postal and Telecommunications Act, Public Order and Security Act, or Maintenance of Peace and Order Act, the Railway Act and the Copper Act. I thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Chief Secretary. My name is Shawanda Cruz from ZBC. My question is directed to the Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs. Honorable ZBC. The Minister of the Constitutional Amendment Bill, maybe can you take us through the processes that are going to witness from the initial presentation cabinet today? And how long is it going to take? Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Chief Secretary. My name is Retina Machigora from Shima or Journalists Agency. My question is on approximately how many prisoners are expected to benefit from the process this year.
Thank you very much. How many?
Yes, approximately how many prisoners?
Yes.
Thank you, Chief Secretary. My name is Mokozeshi from the Herald. My question is to the Justice Minister and probably the Attorney General as he responds to that question which was asked by Bruce Chawanda about the amendment. We heard that you presented it to Cabinet. What was the response of Cabinet?
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chief Secretary. All the three questions are going to Minister Zimbabwe. How long will it take and how many prisoners are going to be from the claimants?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. The first question from Chawanda was on the process of the bill. So what will happen is the bill was presented today and we will then allow the AG to just do some legal scrapping and then we send it to the Speaker. The Constitution says all our bills, basically we send them to the Speaker who will then take it for gazetting. If it's an ordinary bill, it's 21 days gazetting before you do the first reading in Parliament. But for a constitutional bill, the Constitution says once you gazette it, you wait for 90 days before you introduce it in Parliament. So what will happen is once the Speaker has sent it for gazetting and it's in the public domain, that period will now use it to have our debates, to call upon anyone you want to interview about their views. Parliament will call for public consultations, and once all that is done, the relevant parliamentary committees will now compile their reports. And then when we introduce the bill in Parliament, because this is a constitutional bill, it doesn't need referral to the Parliamentary Legal Committee. So once we introduce it, we then start the second reading stage where we then introduce the bill formally in Parliament and debate will commence in Parliament. Once the second reading is done, we then go into committee, and that process, it depends on the parliamentary calendar. I cannot speak on how long it will take, but once it's gazetted, it can even take 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 4 weeks, depending on the business of Parliament, what is it that we want to do. But basically, that's the process. On how many prisoners? I think the prison authorities will now have to do the mathematics. We just, as Cabinet, we didn't deal with figures. We dealt with categories. That is what has been approved. So the prison officials will look at the categories and say, this is what has been approved. Let's look into our records and identify the ones that are to be released, and that information will be in the public domain. And then Chingwere, the reason why the minister said Cabinet approved, it means that is what Cabinet agreed. So thank you. Yes, something.
And I think the Honorable Minister is spoken.
Thank you very much. Let's move to the second and final round. 3 questions. Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Brendan Joseph from the Daily News. I wanted to find out from the Minister, are we going to witness a referendum? We are hearing from other legal experts that they are required, 2 referendums are required for this bill to be implemented. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any? Yes. Bruce?
Thank you very much. My question is directed to the Minister of Youth. Looking at the theme for this year's celebrations, maybe you can just give us insight into the kind of transformation that the youth have realized since we held the previous celebrations last year.
Thank you, Chief Secretary. My question is directed to the Minister of Youth. Honorable, in terms of preparedness for the children for the 21st February movement day, what how prepared are we and what is left to be done? Are we ready for the celebrations?
Ms. Rachel. Thank you very much. Over to you, Honorable Minister, for the response.
Thank you, Chief Secretary. The first question is to the Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, Honorable Zimbabwe.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, I'm unable to answer to an allegation that somebody who doesn't have a document has already commented on something that was deliberated today. Where did they get it from? My earlier response was we have 90 days to ask these questions, to interrogate it with the actual document. So hold your horses and read the actual document as opposed to what people dream of and think about.
And the last 2 questions that the Minister of Youth, Honorable Chinoma Chakai.
Thank you very much. I'm going to start with the question from Bruce. Allow me to say, firstly, we would like to appreciate and thank His Excellency for coming up with the National Development Strategy 1 and the National Development Strategy 2, which speaks highly of transforming the youth initiatives. But basically, considering the fact that when each and every year we celebrate the National Youth Day, we've identified or we've realized that we used to celebrate, just gather, celebrate, and just talk of other issues without getting into real issues that are affecting the youth. So this time around, we need to consider skills. This is why we've started with the ICAVA Youth Training Center, whereby we are going to have 2 training centers, the Vocational Training Center and the National Youth Service Training Center combined. And this is going to be one of the biggest our biggest institution in terms of youth empowerment, youth training skills in both. So this time around, we need to focus on the youth employment. But how can we focus on employment when we don't have employment? So the solution through the National Development Strategy 2 is to provide our youth with skills. So the skills that are going to be provided are also going to create entrepreneurs and also empower our youth with the knowledge on how to start their own businesses, how they can also become employers of their own. So basically, we need to start identifying the opportunities and create skills amongst our youth. So there's a variety of programs that we are going to put in place on this day, and we just hope that we are going to outline, and we also have to provide the nation with the full detailed report of what we're going to do as the ministry towards the youth development and youth support. Then secondly, Chimwere, you asked about the state of preparedness. I want to assure the nation that we've moved, actually we are almost over 80%, and we just hope that by the day of the event, you're going to see something that you've never witnessed within the ministry, because this is the first and one of its kind, and the program is going to surprise our nation, because we've identified so many venues and we've developed so many ideas towards the issue of youth initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ministers, for responding. Anyone with a burning question before we close? Yes, Bruce.
I'm sorry for judging that my question is burning.
Yeah.
My question goes to the Minister of Lands. The projections that you made in terms of the planned electorate and the output, is there any possibility of revising it downwards or upwards, considering what has happened in other regions in terms of planting?
Thank you for the question. In fact, if you had listened very carefully, you would have understood that the chair of the cabinet, post-cabinet committee only dealt with the area and not the yield. Because we are not at a stage where we can estimate the yield. That will be done with the second round of crops, livestock and fisheries assessment. We are focusing on preliminary area planted to the crops. And we've seen major increases, 30% increase for maize, 15% for tobacco, and maybe more than 100% for finger millet and other crops. So Zimstats is currently leading the government-wide effort to conclusively determine the areas planted to the various crops. And we expect that data to be in by the 15th of February. However, you note that we had an exceptionally good first half of the season, where we had continuous rains to an extent that on sandier soils we had some leaching, and on heavier soils we had, of course, a localized waterlogging, and weed infestation and other issues also arose. So that is the essence of this area assessment. It will be able to tell us of this planted 1.9 million hectares of maize, how much of that will be lost to waterlogging, how much of that will be lost to pests and on. Then as we go into March, April, we conduct the second round of crops, livestock and fisheries assessment, which is a quantitative assessment because the maize will have cooked. So we now are able to go in and do a sample of select households in various areas to then actually determine the expected yield. And as you saw last year, we introduced a third parameter because worldwide we use the standing crop as the estimate. But because of the post-harvest losses that we've seen, we now do a post-harvest assessment to say, of the standing maize crop, how much have you actually secured in your granary? And that allows us now to plan in terms of deficits or surpluses that we might generate. But that's the process that we are at. We are very pleased as government with the performance, and I applaud all farmers for having responded to government's call to increase the area under crops so that we can secure enough food to feed our nation, to replenish our strategic grain reserve, but begin to prime Zimbabwe as an agro-industrial hub away from the food basket mentality and status of the past. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, Honorable Ministers, Attorney General. media fraternity will come to the end of today's post-cabinet press briefing. We meet next Tuesday. Thank you.